Norfolk and Nottinghamshire classes, welcome to your English lesson today. We have been learning and reading and writing about the book Varjak Paw by S.F. Said. Today we're going to continue learning about writing a diary entry so that we can entertain our reader. This is our second lesson of 5 lessons about writing a diary. Okay, before we begin, I'd like you to check that you've got a pencil or a pen and a piece of paper or your home learning book. And it could be really useful to have your copy of Varjak Paw with you too. Okay, should have everything together now. Here is my diary entry. I've written this from the point of view of Varjak Paw. And today I've identified another feature in red. And I want you to think about what this feature is that I have written, that I have highlighted in red. Yesterday, can you remember what we were learning about yesterday? That's right, we were learning about past tense, and we learned that diaries are written in the past tense because they're talking about events that have already happened. Well, today we've got another feature that you'll find in a diary. Okay, I'm going to read to you, and I want you to really think about what the feature is in red and what it is doing to my writing. Dear diary, this evening the most exciting thing happened. You just won't believe it. I can hardly believe it myself. It started off like any other ordinary night. Just before dinner, Elder Paul was telling us amazing tales about my fearless ancestor Jalal. I just love hearing these tales, since they are the closest thing I'll ever get to an adventure in this mind-numbingly boring place. It's really the dullest life a cat could have. Then, after the others had gone for their dinner, the front door swung open. I was so frightened, my fur stood on its end. 2 shiny black shoes, each as big as a cat, and they were coming through the door. They belonged to a man I'd never seen before. As the man strode into the hallway, I noticed 2 sleek black cats stalking into the Contessa's house. Who do you think you are coming in my house like that? Okay, so what do you think that feature in red is? And what is it doing to my writing? I want you to have a little think and say your answer out loud, and then write down what you think the LO is today. What is that feature in red, and what's it doing to my writing? Press pause now. Okay, great, you're back. So have you worked it out? Yes, of course you have. It is informal language. So we're going to be using informal language so that our diary has got a chatty tone, so it's friendly. Okay, so let's remind ourselves what formal language is. So formal language is used when we are communicating with people we don't know very well and want to impress or show respect to. For example, police officers or head teachers. Okay, so formal language. Let's have a little look at what formal language might sound like. Let's read this first sentence together. I regret to inform you that the shopping centre is now closed. It's a very formal way to say I'm sorry is I regret. Let's have a look at another way in which we can speak or say or write formal language. That was very amusing. I laughed out loud. And let's read the last one together. The manager requests that everyone arrives for the meeting at 9 a.m. prompt. So they're very formal sentences. Okay, now we looked at formal language in our last unit of work. So I want you to have a little think about where you might find formal language. Then say your answer out loud and then write down different places where you might find formal language. Do that now. Press pause. Okay, great, you're back. So let's see how many you got. You might have even thought of some different ones. So at school, yes, we can definitely be speaking at times, not all the times, but sometimes we might speak at school. If we were speaking to Mr. Stevanovic, we might use our formal best language. At business, yes, when people go to work, in a court, and if you're writing an essay or an academic paper for school or university, when you're talking with someone important, or if you're having dinner with the Queen, you might use your very best formal language. Okay, so then tell me, what are some of the traits of formal language? How do we know that language is formal? Okay, some of you might want to challenge yourselves again by pressing pause and writing down on your paper some of the traits of formal language. If you want to do that, press pause now. Okay, great. So let's have a look at what some of the traits are of formal language. So there are no contractions, and we'll talk about that further in the lesson. There's longer and more complicated sentences, bigger and more sophisticated words. And they follow an etiquette guidelines. There's particular ways in which we speak. We don't say, I'm sorry, we say, I regret to inform you. And it sounds extremely polite. It even sounds, when you say it, you can hear how polite it sounds. Okay, well done if you were able to think of some of those traits. So that's formal language, and we're not going to be using formal language because we're writing a diary. We're writing it for ourselves. It's got to be chatty and friendly, so we're going to use informal language. And informal language is used when we are relaxed and with people we know well. For example, our family or our friends. Okay, here is what informal language might sound like. Let's read it together. That film was awesome. My turn. That film was awesome. Your turn. My turn. Wanna go to the chippy? Your turn. And wanna go to the chippy, we would say, do you want or would you like to go to the chip shop? This is very informal. My turn. We're just hanging out at Em's house. Your turn. Okay. And so that was some examples of informal chatty language, how we might chat to our friends. So where might I find informal language? Where will we hear informal language? Some of you might want to challenge yourself, and you might want to write down as many places as you can think of where you might find informal language. If you want to do that, press pause now. Okay, so we're back together, and some of us have already written down where we might find informal language. Let's see how many of these you thought about. At home, at the playground or in the playground at school, with your friends, with your family, among kids and teenagers, and on a sports field. These are all places where we're going to hear informal language, any place that's casual. Okay, so what are some of the traits of informal language? We're all going to try this. We're all going to say out loud what some of the traits are. What are the things about informal language? How do we know it is informal language? Say your answer out loud, then write it down on your piece of paper or home learning book. Do that now. Press pause. Great, you're back. And so what are some of the traits of informal language? Well, there are contractions. In formal language, we don't have contractions, but in informal language, we do. There's slang and idioms, shorter sentences, less complicated words, and it sounds a little bit less proper or a little bit less polite. Okay, so we've talked about contractions. We will find contractions in informal language. So what are contractions? I want everybody to have a little think, say their answers out loud, and then write it down on their piece of paper or home learning book. What are contractions? Press pause now. Okay, great. Here we go. Here's what I put. I said two words that have been merged together. Apostrophes are used to show that you have omitted, which means you've left out, some of the letters. And the new word, it's shorter, it's faster to say. And using contractions, it can make your writing sound more casual, more friendly. Okay, so I've got a little test for you, a little quiz of contractions. I want you to write the contraction for the following words. Did not, she will, would have, I am, we will, let us, should not, it is. I want you to write the contractions. Say them out loud, then write them down. Do that now, press pause. Okay, let's see how many you get right out of 8 for your quiz. Did not becomes didn't. Okay, she will becomes she'll. I hope you're saying the contractions out loud. Would have becomes would have. I am becomes I'm. We will becomes will. Let us becomes let's. Should not becomes shouldn't. It is becomes it's. Count up how many of those you got right out of 8 and then give yourself a little mark next to your work. Well done if you got all 8 correct. Okay, so why do we use informal language when we are writing a diary? I have said this already in this lesson. So let's see how many of you were really listening. Say your answer out loud and then write it down on your piece of paper or home learning book. Why do we use informal language when we are writing a diary? Do that now. Press pause. Okay, great. And let's see what I put. I said it makes your writing seem more friendly, more natural. And you might have said it might sound more chatty. I've been using that term a lot as well. Friendly, chatty, natural. And it's a record of your personal events. It's keeping what you've been doing. It's your thoughts, it's your feelings. So it's for you. So that's why we use informal language. Of course, at the moment, we're writing the diary pretending we're someone else as a record of their personal events. But a diary is a record of personal events, so it's got to be informal. It's really chatty and friendly. Okay. So I've got another challenge for you here. I've got some informal language in green. And then I'm going to bring up some formal language in purple. And you're going to match the informal language with the formal language. But I know that some of you might want to challenge yourselves. If you want to challenge yourselves, you can press pause. And then you can go through and you can see if you can work out the formal language to the 5 green boxes there before I pull it up. So if you want to really challenge yourself and you think, yeah, I know what the formal language is for those formal, informal phrases that Miss Dandring has written, you can press pause and do that now. Okay, and so you're either back or continuing with the lesson, and here we go. So I've written in purple some of the formal language. So let's have a look at the green and let's have a look at the purple. So the green is informal. My turn, informal language, your turn. My turn, informal language, your turn. I'm going to read the green boxes, the informal language. I'm going to say it first, then you'll say it. I think. Job. Sorry. To get. Just a note to say. Well done for those of you who are following along and joining in with the informal language. And on the right hand, we've got purple boxes, and this is the formal language. I'm going to say it first, and then I want you to copy. Please accept my apologies for. I am writing to inform you. To receive. occupation? It is my opinion that. Okay, great. So now I want you to match the boxes up. And I want you to do that now. Which of the informal language matches with the formal language? Say your answer out loud first and then make a note of it on your home learning book or on your piece of paper. Do that now. Press pause. Okay, great. You're back. And let's have a look. So I think becomes, it is my opinion that. It's a much longer sentence, isn't it? But it sounds so much more important. Job is your occupation. Sorry. Please accept my apologies for. So once again, a longer sentence. To get becomes to receive. And just a note to say, I am writing to inform you. Okay, so let's have a look. Is it formal language or informal language? Okay, I want you to call out formal language or informal language. I'll make a dash for the front door. It's informal language. Well done. I'll, it's got a contraction there. And dash, that's a really casual word. I did not want to stop listening to elder poor. Call it out. What is it? Of course, it's formal language. I did not want to stop listening to elder poor. That doesn't have a contraction. We would say if it was informal, I didn't. I was so frightened I nearly fell over. And that's informal language. It's really chatty, isn't it? I was so frightened I nearly fell over. Really chatty and friendly tone. I've been stuck in this boring house forever. What is it? Formal or informal? Let me hear you. Here we go. It's informal language. I've been stuck in this boring place forever. Very chatty, very informal. Okay, we're going to keep moving on. So I've got a formal sentence here, and I want you to write and make the sentence informal. I will try and escape through the front door. Here's a little clue. Can you make any of those two words merge them to make them into a contraction? That's my clue for you. Let's read the sentence together. I will try and escape through the front door. Say your informal sentence out loud and then write it down on your piece of paper. Do that now. Press pause. Okay, great. You're back. And you could have put something like this. I'll try and escape through the front door. We've got the contraction there. I will becomes I'll. It's shorter and easier to say. Okay, we're going to try the sentence. Let's read the sentence together. I have never left this tedious environment. I have never left this tedious environment. Can you find any contractions? Are there any sophisticated words there that you could try and make a little more chatty? Okay, say your answer out loud and then write it down on your piece of paper. Do that now. Press pause. And here's what I wrote. I said, I've never left this boring place. So I have becomes I've, and boring places, tedious environment. So I'm making it much more chatty and I'm simplifying tedious environment and making it more simple, boring place. Okay, we're getting good at this now. Let us adjourn to the living room after dinner. Let's say it together. Let us adjourn to the living room after dinner. That's a tricky word, adjourn. What do you think that means? What are they going to do after dinner? What could that mean? Try and work out and get a gist of the story. That word adjourn could be made a little bit easier, I think. Let us adjourn to the living room after dinner. Have a little think, say your answer out loud, and then write your informal sentence on your piece of paper or your home learning book. Do that now. Press pause. Okay, so that was quite tricky because adjourn is a really tricky word. And it just means go, if you're going to go somewhere. So if we're going to adjourn to the living room after dinner, it means you have your dinner and then you go to the living room. That's a good new word for us. And so I've changed here, I've changed let us to let's, I've made a contraction, and I've changed adjourn, which is a very formal, sophisticated word, to go. Let's go to the living room after dinner. Much more chatty and very informal. Okay, so I have a very formal sentence here. Let's read it together. Dearest, the garden is a frightfully dirty place, said Mother. Let's read it again. Dearest, the garden is a frightfully dirty place, said Mother. So that word frightfully dirty, that phrase frightfully dirty, frightfully, it's probably a new word. So we need to try and get a gist of the sentence. What is the garden? The garden is a something dirty place. How can we make that word, the sentence, informal? I think frightfully is a very formal word, isn't it? Very sophisticated. Is there anything else in there that you could change to make that sentence a bit less formal? Let's have another listen. I want you to listen as I read it. Dearest, the garden is a frightfully dirty place, said Mother. Okay. Have a little think about what the meaning of that sentence is. I want you to make it into an informal sentence, much more chatty, much more friendly. Say your new sentence out loud and then write it down on your piece of paper or your home learning book. Do that now. Press pause. Okay, great. You're back. And well, here's what I put. I made a few changes. I said sweetie rather than dearest. The garden's a very dirty place, said Mum. So I've made lots of changes. Let's just have a little look at those changes together. So dearest is a very kind of formal way of speaking to somebody. I've said sweetie. It's a much more informal way that you might speak to a family member. And then garden is, I've changed it. I've contracted it to gardens. And then rather than frightfully, which means awfully, terribly, very much so, I've put very. It's a frightfully dirty place. It's a very dirty place. And of course, I've changed mother to the much more informal mum. Let's read my informal sentence together. Sweetie, the garden's a very dirty place, said Mum. Okay, so we're going to keep working on some informal language. Now, you've all heard a bit of Varjak Paw from today's Destination Reader lesson, which is great. So I want you to really think your Varjak Paw when you're looking at these pictures. What might Varjak Paw be thinking or saying here? Now, we're going to be thinking in informal language, really chatty and friendly. Let's have a look and do the first one together. So I said, I've got to get out of here. That's very informal. We wouldn't write that if we were writing a letter to the Queen, would we? And so I've is our contraction for I have, and outer, that's out of. I've put it into, and it's not really even a grammatically correct word, but sometimes we'll go out of here. So I've made it really chatty, really friendly. Okay, I want you to have a turn at writing an informal sentence for this picture. Say your sentence out loud and then write it down on your piece of paper or your home learning book. Do that now. Press pause. Great, and I wonder what sentences you wrote. Okay, here is another picture from the story. Some of you might want to write your informal sentence now before you see my sentence. If you want to write your informal sentence now because you want to challenge yourself, press pause now. Okay, so you're either rejoining the lesson or we're carrying on. And here is my sentence. I said, "What's that man doing here?" Those of you who haven't written your sentence yet, you wanted to see my sentence first, I want you to say your answer out loud and then write it down on a piece of paper or your home learning book. Do that now. Press pause. Okay, and here is why my sentence has been informal. I've said what's, which is short for what is, and man. I could have put gentleman if I was being more formal. Okay, so once again, we're going to have some children who are going to pause the lesson now so that they can say their sentence before I show them mine. So if you want to challenge yourselves, do that now. Press pause. Okay, so we've got some children back joining us, and we're going to continue the lesson. Here is what I wrote. Here is my sentence. And my sentence is, who do they think they were? Who do they think they were? Who do they think they were? And so now it's time to make sure that everybody has written their sentence. Sorry for this picture. So some of us can continue the lesson because we've written our sentence, and some of us are going to press pause now and write our sentence down. Press pause. Okay, so we've got another picture here, and that's Elder Paw sitting up on a chair with all the other cats around him. Some of us are going to challenge ourselves, and they're going to press pause now and write their sentence before I bring my sentence up. If you want to challenge yourselves, press pause now. Okay, so we're either continuing the lesson or we're coming back to the lesson. Some of us will have our sentence written down. Here is what I wrote. I said, Elder Paw's tales of Jalal were amazing. And look at that word there, amazing. That's a really chatty word, isn't it? It's not a formal word. And that's how I've made my sentence informal. So I need everybody to make sure they've written a sentence. So if you haven't written your sentence yet, I want you to say your sentence out loud, then write it down on your piece of paper or home learning book. Do that now. Press pause. Okay, so everybody's got their sentence, and we're going to move on to this picture. Some of you might know what you're going to write now because we've had a lot of practice. If you do, I want you to write your sentence, your informal sentence for this picture. Do that now. Press pause. Okay, and for those of you who haven't written your sentence yet, you're waiting to see my sentence first, that's fine. Here is my sentence. I'm the boss of this family, so you'll do what I say. And I've got I'm the boss is really informal, and you'll, because it's a contraction for you will, do what I say. Now, those of you who haven't written your sentences yet, I want you to say your sentence out loud and then write it down. Do that now. Press pause. Okay, so everybody's got their informal sentence for that picture. Great. Okay, so we've had some really good practice of writing informal sentences. So here are some of my informal sentences. Or are they? Let's read them together, and then you're going to write 1, 2, 3, and you're going to tick and cross just like we've done in so many of our previous lessons, whether it is informal or not. Okay, let's read number 1 together. You won't believe how boring my life is. Let's read number 2 together. I regret to inform you, but the Contessa is unwell. And let's read number 3 together. They just walked in like they owned the place. Which of those sentences are informal? If I got it right, put a tick next to the number. If it's wrong, you could try and rewrite it informally. Do that now. Tick or cross. Press pause. Great, you're back. So the first sentence, you won't believe how boring my life is. You won't believe, that's so chatty, it's so friendly. Boring rather than tedious, which would be much more formal. Boring. So yeah, that's a really informal sentence. Number 2, listen to how I say this sentence. I regret to inform you, but the Contessa is unwell. You can even hear how I'm saying that sentence. It's a formal sentence. It should be, I'm telling you, the Contessa's unwell. That would be an informal sentence. So number 2 should have a cross next to it. Well done if you recognise that and you fixed it. Number 3, let's read it together. They just walked in like they owned the place. Listen to me read it. They just walked in like they owned the place. Does that sound formal, like I'd speak to the Queen, or does it sound chatty, like I'd speak to a friend? They just walked in. Okay, it's really informal way of speaking, so that should have a tick next to it. You should have tick, cross, tick. Well done if you got all of those correct. Okay, so we're going to have another challenge here. So I've got 3 more sentences, and this time I have identified the formal language, and I want you to tell me if I've identified all the formal language, if I'm correct. So, first of all, let's read the sentences together. Number 1, I've got to get out that door. Number 2, it's so exciting listening to tales of Jalal. And number 3, I can't believe what awesome thing happened today. So, have I identified the informal language? Let's have a look at number 1. There we go, I've. And number 2, it's. So I've got the contractions. I'm doing a good job so far. And number 3, I can't believe. It's really chatty. I've got a contraction there. And awesome, because that's a really friendly, the kind of word that you would use with friends and family. Okay, I think I've got all the informal language there. What do you think? Do you think I've got it right? Have a little think, have a look through, and then next to 1, 2, 3, tick or cross if I've identified all the informal language. If you know me well enough by now, you'll know that one of them is incorrect and I haven't actually got all the formal language. But let's see. Do that now, press pause. Okay, let's have a look. I've got to get out that door. Well, get out? That's really informal. I didn't recognise it. I didn't get that, did I? And so that's incorrect. It should be, I have got to exit from that door, perhaps. That would be a bit more formal, but get out is a really informal language. And I'm correct here, and I'm correct here. Well done if you identified that I was missing in number 1, all of the informal language. Okay, so now it's your turn to give this a go. You're going to spend about 10 minutes. You're going to write 1 paragraph. And I want you to really focus on informal language. You could tell it from the point of view of Vajak, or some of you might like to challenge yourself and choose one of the other characters from the book. But most of you will use from the point of view of Vajak, so that you can really focus on your informal language. We're doing this so our diary sounds chatty and friendly. Okay, let's have another look. Here we go. So whilst you're doing your writing, I would suggest that we leave this page up and you pause here so that you can use my ideas, and you can maybe magpie some of my ideas in your writing. It should take about 10, maybe 15 minutes for you to do this. Get yourselves comfortable, and well done everybody for doing your writing today. Press pause. Fantastic. I'm so impressed, and you should be really proud of yourselves as well for coming along and doing the lesson and being motivated to do your writing at home. Well done all. Tomorrow we're going to continue our learning based on the book Vajak Paul. We're going to continue learning about writing diaries because that's what we're doing this week. Until then, I want you to notice in your reading, notice around you where you can see informal language being used. Well done, everybody. Well done for joining in, and take care. Have a great rest of your day. Bye.